Hey everyone, this is Mr. W. This lesson is decimals, part one, tenths. Decimal number is any number that is on the right side of a decimal point. So, for example, here we have 0.1, and our decimal point is right here. And anything to the right side, we would refer to as a decimal or a decimal number. Anything to the left side would not be a decimal, that would be a whole number. And what the decimal point does is that it separates our whole numbers from our decimals. Now, tenths would be 1 equal part of 10 parts, because today our lesson is on tenths. And so we're looking when we're dividing a whole into 10. So for example, our fraction here is 1/10. The top number 1 would just be the shaded part, and the 10 would represent how many in total, and there's 10 in this fraction circle here. And it's our job to be able today to make the connection between fractions and decimals. And we can do that by dividing. I'll show that on our calculator. We would divide the top number, in this case 1 of the fraction, divided by the number on the bottom, in this case 10, and that would equal 0.1, which I'm going to write here. So we could write this fraction as a decimal, and we read this as 1/10. So the fraction is 1/10, and the decimal is read the same way, 1/10. So why do we need decimals? Sometimes we have wholes, but sometimes we have less than a whole. In this case, like a slice of pie, we do not have a whole, we have less. And our number system has to have a way to show parts that are less than a whole. And that's what decimals do over here on the right side. Each whole number, which would be on the left of our decimal point, always increases by 10. For example, if you have 1, well, 1 times 10 would be 10. 10 times 10 would be 100, and it would continue to increase with each place value by times 10. Decimals are the opposite. If we have 1, instead of timesing by 10, we are dividing by 10. In other words, we are getting smaller and smaller each time. And there's just as many place values on the decimal side getting smaller and smaller and smaller as there are in the whole numbers. But today we're focusing on the tenths. Now, the decimal point is really important because it acts as a separator between our whole numbers on the left side and our decimals that show a fraction of a whole to the right side. So our focus today is really paying attention to the decimal because it separates our whole numbers on the left and our decimals on the right. It's important to be able to read decimals correctly. So when you read decimals, it's real easy. You just have to say the name of the decimal place. Remember, we said the name of the decimal place. So, for example, in this case, today we're dealing with tenths because that would be the first place value to the right side of the decimal point. So this would be read as 1/10. You don't say the 0. We would not say 0.1 or 0.1. Some adults will say 0.1, but for today's lesson, we're focusing on the tenths. This would be 2/10. We say 2/10 because it's in the tenths decimal place. 3/10, 8/10. We have a mixed number down here this would be read, because the 4 is in the ones, we would say 4 and 6 tenths, 1 and 2 tenths, 12 and 8 tenths, like that. We said it's important to be able to make the connection between fractions and decimals, so we can use our fraction circle for that. Directions: write the fractions as decimals and mixed numbers. So let's start with the fraction. I'm seeing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 are shaded for numerator, out of a total of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So this would be 7 tenths. I could also show this in decimal form by writing this as 0.7. And I'm just going to prove that again. Remember, we said we can divide. So if I take my fraction 7 and divide that by the bottom number of 10, you'll see that that equals 7 tenths. Here we have a mixed number, that's 1 whole. And then if I want to write this as a fraction, that would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. My fraction bar, out of a total of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So this mixed number would be 1 and 6 tenths. We could also write it as a decimal. We would write it as 1, that's our whole, right? And then our decimal, anything to the left is a whole number. And then our 6 tenths would simply be 6, and we would read this as 1 and 6 tenths. Pause if you like and see if you can write the fraction or mixed number as a decimal. Okay, how'd you do? All right, the fraction 3 tenths would be written as 0.3 or 3 tenths. 4 and 2 tenths in decimal form would be 4, like that, which would read 4 and 2 tenths. The mixed number 7 and 6 tenths would read 7 and 6 tenths. And 4 tenths would be written as 0.4, but it would be read as 4 tenths. All right, thanks everybody. Hope this helped today, and we'll see you next time.